You're listening to the All Systems Go podcast, the show that teaches you everything you need to know to put your business on autopilot. Learn how to deploy automated marketing and sales systems in your business the right way with your host, the professor of automation himself and founder of Automation Bridge, Chris Davis.
Welcome to the All Systems Go podcast. I'm your host, Chris L. Davis, the founder of Automation Bridge, an online publication for small business automation. In this episode, we'll cover what the role email really plays in your marketing. Email marketing, it's a term, it's frequently used as a finish line for marketing online, almost as if you're doing email marketing, you're good with digital marketing. But it's far from that. And what I want to discuss in this episode is why most people's approach to email is wrong, so you can fix it and be right. Okay, so before we jump into it, if this is your first time listening to the podcast, please make sure you listen to this episode. It's in its entirety. If you are not subscribed, please subscribe. So first time listeners, listen to this in its entirety. Subscribe at the end. If you have been listening and just have not subscribed, we're in Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you can listen to and download podcasts. The All Systems Go podcast is there. And while you're subscribing, do me a favor and leave a 5-star review as well. I want to highlight Deuteronomy is the name of this one. And this review and 5-star rating is entitled "The Truth!" It says, Chris is a guy who knows, in all caps, what's up. He's my go-to guy for automation and marketing education. Do yourself a favor and get in on this awesome podcast. Dude, Rami, appreciate it. Thank you. And for those of you who are going to follow my instructions and leave a 5-star rating and review, thank you in advance for that. It is greatly appreciated. So let's jump right into it. Email marketing, for me, it's how I got started in business. Now, when I say started, I mean a professional, like an official professional. As a kid growing up, you have various hustles and, things to make money. And then in college. So for instance, when I was in college, I used to modify Xboxes and make money that way. I would cut hair. I would fix computers, just find ways to generate money. So you could argue that was a form of a business because there was a monetary exchange. But when I started to approach business in a way where it was like, I need to live off this. I need to build something that's sustainable and potentially hand down to my children. Email marketing was my entry into it. And it came from blogging. This is around the time Blogger, blogspot.com websites were hot. They were the thing. And I remember WordPress was fairly new at the time. And if you were on WordPress and you had a blog like that was on WordPress, you were like ahead of the game. And I just remember scratching my head all the time, like, did they embed Blogger onto their website somehow? I just couldn't wrap my head around how it worked, right? So I was used to engaging with blogs and some websites, but mainly, Blogger. I had my own Blogspot blog and everything, and I thought that was it. And then when I started to say, hey, I'm watching, I think I was introduced to the idea of marketing online through Pat Flynn, through a friend of mine who was a professional blogger. And I was like, how do you make money writing words? Now, granted, this is over 7 years ago. OK, so it's not like, you guys may be judging me like, well, how did you not know that, Chris? You're the automation guy. But, 7-8 years ago, things look totally different. And it may be even more than that. Let me see, too. Yeah, it's about 8 years ago. So anyways, I was put on to the existence. I didn't know the power. I knew the existence. So I started to watch the, frequent Pat Flynn's blog and read the Tim Ferriss book, 4-Hour Workweek. And that exposed me. And it wasn't until I purchased Jeff Walker's Jeff Walker's product launch formula. I was an engineer at the time, and I guess this is a story of all of you who are moonlighting and aspirational engineers who work a corporate job. I believe it was $2,000, everybody. That was my first course. I paid $2,000 for this course under the promise that he was going to teach me the launch formula to get my business off the ground and make millions of dollars. Of course, that was not the case. Not Jeff's fault, my fault for believing it. Nothing against Jeff, because what I learned in product launch formula was it made it click, right? And what I mean by it made it click is prior to that, I was a practicing web developer, and I thought that the power of your business online was in your website, right? So you start building websites and you look around and say, where's the money? There's no money. You're like, okay, I'm missing something. So when I got product launch formula, I actually thought it was going to show me how to use the internet and like websites to make money. But it wasn't until I saw various examples of emails. He kept using different people and how they used email to generate money. And it clicked. It finally, I remember the day the light bulb came on and I was like, oh, email. He's using email to communicate a message. And once they get the message, the value from it, then they buy. Right. So it wasn't I didn't go one place. I feel like I was nurtured over time in various environments, and going through product launch formula, seeing the multiple ways that the multiple roles, or I should say ways, because I'm talking about roles, but the multiple ways email was used in various businesses. That's what did it for me. It clicked, and Jeff was drawn on a whiteboard. So for any of you who don't know, I love whiteboards and I love illustration. So it made it all consumable. It was all consumable for me, right? So what I did is I said, okay, well, it's not about the website. It's about the email. So I started email marketing. I started out with Aweber, and because that's what everybody was using at the time, that was the gold standard. Man, how times have changed. And then soon after that, and let me just parenthetically insert, for Aweber, there was a tool, Jack Bourne, I believe. Jack, I'm going off the fly. I am not researching these podcasts as I record them. So I believe it was Jack Bourne, but he had AW Pro Tools. And what AW Pro Tools did is it added automation to Aweber. Well, that was my intro to automation, moving people between lists, because you couldn't do it in Aweber natively. If they were on one list and, did something, you couldn't automatically move them to the next. And there were even tags. I mean, this platform was ahead of its time. Hats off to Jack. So I got AW Pro Tools, and that I added automation. And then what I found is that GetResponse was a platform that did all of that without the add-on. It did it all, but nobody was using it. So this is very interesting, everybody. This was my first time allowing my process to determine my tool, because I chose Aweber because all of the professionals were choosing Aweber. But when I learned my needs, that I wanted a particular type of automation and I needed a particular type of functionality, I was willing to break free from what everybody else was doing and use a tool that at the time nobody was using GetResponse like that. But I did, and it worked great. In fact, one of my autoresponders is still in GetResponse to this day. Okay. So in the beginning, for me, it was a small list. It started out for like 26 people. Maybe it grew to like 50 or something. And of those 26 people, they were like friends, family, people who were 1 degree away from me, per se. And believe it or not, though, just following the tutelage from the Jeff Walkers and the Brendan Bouchards and Pat Flynn. In fact, now that I'm thinking about it, I may have purchased Brendan Bouchards. I purchased Jeff Walker and Brendan Bouchards fairly closely. It was an investment. It was like a $4,000 investment within a year. So that was huge for me as an engineer. But anyways, I did that. And I just say that to say, I think that tutelage was helping me in ways that I didn't understand at the time, because with this email list of a size of about 50, I sold my first $1,000 info product. Right. So for me, email indeed worked and still works, but it just looks a little bit different now. right? And that's really the nature of the podcast and why we're here. Back then, when I'm talking about how I made my sale with email back then, landing page software hadn't been developed. It's funny because all my developers will know this, but at this time, it was all about Thesis, the Thesis theme. Thesis was like the marketer's theme, and then Genesis Framework Studio Press came shortly after and was like, hey, we can do all of that stuff too. And as we see, the history has shown that Studio Press really captured the market. But I remember that being a discussion at that time. And the reason why I say it, because landing page software was tied to your WordPress install, right? It was like, did the theme that you buy come with a landing page template? And by landing page template, I mean a template that removed the header and the footer so that you still had to design and build the landing page. There was no drag and drop back then. So it was still very much technical, right? So that was back then, of course, landing page software hadn't been developed. SaaS was really still a new thing. We hadn't seen SaaS in the marketing space beyond like the heavy hitters like Aweber and Infusionsoft at the time and, things of that nature. So it wasn't as fragmented and wide of a variety as it is now. And social media hadn't even evolved as a channel, right? Like you started to see signs of a Facebook page, but people were still skeptical. Nobody was bought in, and websites weren't as interactive. There wasn't content being displayed, pop-ups, opt-in boxes, dynamic displays of content as you click through and navigate. Like none of that existed back then. Right. So I'm just saying that was the context. So email really stood out. Email stood out as the primary example. And I think one of my challenges just as a professional and a thought leader and expert in the space is really understanding perspective. I feel like I've over time just been so focused on executing and producing results that sometimes I don't take the time to sit back and really get perspective on what I'm doing. And I say that because email, one of the things that made email stand out, or the growth of it, and how it could, how it could supplement growth elsewhere, was I was working with a guy. This was pro bono. He had a Facebook page. I really liked the page. And again, this is the time where Facebook pages were showing up in your feed, right? Like it was prime time for Facebook. And I said, hey man, your content is so good, but you need to get them off social media. You should get them on a newsletter, like get them in an email, and then email this content to the people as well. And I just knew what I was trying to do was slow walk them into monetizing his Facebook page, because it was very hard and practically impossible to monetize it then. Facebook advertising wasn't even a thing back then. So if you're going to monetize all those likes, you had people with thousands of likes and no money. So I knew the money was in the email. So what happened is we did that. We created a landing page. I wish I had a picture of it. I know it was terrible, but it was a landing page, captured email addresses, and it started out with like maybe 1,500 likes. And within 3 months, it was up to 12,000 likes. And what we found was that there was this unmeasurable impact in nature of performance for email, where once people started receiving them, they would forward them, they would share it. Right there. I think about when people show me stuff on their phone, they were probably pulling it up on their computer. Hey, look at this. Right. This is funny. Or, and that blew my mind. And I was like, wow, email is so powerful. Again, this is back in the day. So I was sold on email in its traditional sense back then. But now there's more digital channels than ever. Right. And new ones are emerging. Email isn't new. Everybody's using and abusing it. And it's harder to land in the inbox because what an inbox is has changed. Right. Gmail did you a favor, quote unquote, giving you promotions tabs. If you use Outlook.com online, they have like your main inbox and like other, which is a separate tab. So if you don't check that separate tab, Emails are technically in the inbox, but they're not front and center. Right. So all of these email service providers are trying to be smart to help you. But on the marketer, for the marketer's standpoint, it hurts. And I'll be honest, it has to be done because there's a lot of people who don't learn proven practices with email marketing and just start emailing and blasting folks. And the negligence of one affects the sum. And that's where we're at. So email's new role, with all of that being said, I hope that gave context and just some, information about me and some, understand what's got me to the point where I'm at. So what is email's new role? Well, first off, email is still a highly profitable channel. And if used correctly for any business type, right? Or I should say used correctly for any business type can be highly profitable. Okay. Haven't seen a business that can't benefit from email. Okay. Second is it's not going anywhere, everybody. I repeat, do not listen to anybody that says, well, this is the death of email, or now we can do this. No more email. Email's not going anywhere. I always ask this question. Do you still receive mail in your mailbox at your house? If the answer is yes, you're still going to be receiving emails. Okay. And lastly, there's hints to evolution of email. And this evolution may even present like a re-emergence of email as the primary channel, like it was when I was learning business, right? And some of that evolution is media embedding. I've seen, talks of Google and other platforms talking about where you could actually place more dynamic media content within the email so you don't have to click to leave. That's going to revolutionize email marketing. Okay. So everything that I'm telling you now, if you happen to listen to this later, this was pre-evolution of the email inbox. Right now, all we can do is add links to an email. And there's other platforms that let you do things fancy with images and even videos. But for the most part, email is a source to get people to destination pages, right? As of the time of this recording. So to answer the question, the role that email plays, we have to think about what I call process abandonment. Okay. And that's when someone doesn't complete the required next step in your path. Right. So if you've got 5 steps, they completed 1, 2, but didn't complete 3. And it can happen anywhere within the path. Maybe it's they've did 1, 2, 3 and didn't do 4. Maybe they did 1, not 2. Right. Wherever it is. Well, now we start to see email really playing a different role. Maybe this is additive. Maybe this is an adjustment, right, of the time. But let me put it this way, right? When we speak of paths, the most ideal right now, again, speaking of now, right now, the most ideal path of any digital marketing is for somebody to go from page to page to page to checkout to customer. It's like the perfect, if there were a perfect funnel that somebody could say, hey, I want that. It should be one that takes people effectively page, checkout, customer, page, checkout, page to customer. Okay. But what happens in the event that they don't go from page to page to page? Right. Every savvy marketer listening to me knows that is not the case. If I could run an ad and send them to a landing page, and then on that landing page, they opt in, go to the thank you page. And then on that thank you page, they buy my product. Everybody. Right. The novice marketer is like, look, just run ads and you can make money. The savvy marketer is like, well, not so fast, because everybody's not going to do that. So you need to remarket. So one of the main roles that we're seeing email play is gently nudging somebody back on track when they fall off. Right. So this is email as a great reinforcer in today's digital marketing age. And I need to say this because it's not diminishing its value or ignoring it as a primary channel of revenue generation for some industries. Some industries truly just rely on email. Those industries are thinning down, but broadly speaking, email will often serve as a more effective reinforcement than a primary channel for conversion. And here's just a couple examples to walk through, right? I kind of mentioned one of them, but think of add to landing page to checkout page. If someone hits your ad, then they opt in on the landing page, but they don't complete. Since you've captured their information, you can send an email to follow up and get them back on path, right? You're running a live event and you want people to schedule, hey, schedule some time to talk to me. And let's explore if my program's a good fit, right? To close, what if people were at that live event and then they didn't schedule, right? Now you have email to go in there as a reminder and reinforce the path, right? In-person meeting. Say you met somebody, you're at a networking event, and you want to schedule. Hey, yeah, well, I'll get you. Hey, I'll send you an email to get you signed up for a consultation, and then we'll figure out what the best next steps are. Right? That email is serving as a reinforcement. Now, in all of these cases, especially live, the ideal thing would be to schedule them right there on the spot. Right? Like, why even rely on email if you can do it right there? And that's what I'm posing to you is if you can do it where they're at, why send them to email? You're forcing something based on traditional behavior and tutelage. And this is exactly why I'm recording this, because for some of you, it's just a slight paradigm shift. It's no knock to email, right? It's not us saying email doesn't work. It just works differently. And the reason why it works differently is because the nature of engagement online has just changed. People are spending more time on social media. More videos are being watched now than ever. Communities and groups are becoming the norm, whether it's a forum, a Facebook group, a network, platform that's not social based. People are engaging and exchanging information in various ways online, and we cannot stick to the same old ways of marketing when we see that these shifts and trends are right in front of us. They're sitting right there. So when I look at email, beyond the strong reinforcement that it is, remember, email is no longer on the front line, charging in, go get it, right? It's that strong reinforcement. Your web pages are front line, your groups, right? Your communities, they're all front line now. This is what people are engaging with. So email serves as that strong reinforcement for many. Remember, I'm speaking broadly to make a point, but I understand there's edge cases and there's specific use cases in businesses that say otherwise. We know that. Okay. So now we understand the role, or one of the roles, right? One of the main roles. I guess it's the biggest shift is email as a reinforcer. Okay. So what can we use email to do? Well, given how people are engaging, email actually becomes more powerful once you understand how to use it, right? So one way is getting people off other platforms to nurture and sell to. So let's say you are on Facebook, you're cultivating a community. People can join this community without ever giving you any information, depending on how you set it up, right? But if there's value in that community, perhaps you want to take that conversation offline and take the people who are ready and qualified to the next step. Well, email is the best path for that. Some could argue, well, I'll just message them on Facebook. You could, but depending on their engagement, how crazy their social presence is and how ADD they are, you're running a risk. Email is a lot more intimate and one-to-one, right? So that's one way, getting people off other platforms to nurture the sale. And then the second way is the reverse. Send people to platforms to nurture and sell. using email to expose people to other ways that they can connect with you. Because what we're seeing now, especially if you're marketing to a younger demographic, they're not in their email inbox like that. They're not. They can. If something, let me say this, if something is valuable, anybody of any age will go find it. Right. So if you were, the youngins, if there was a particular game, right, like, hey, we're going to send out 10 free codes to the next game to download when you could get it 10 days in advance, trust and believe they would be checking their email. OK, so value is the ultimate equalizer for every industry. This is why email is not going anywhere. Everybody's going to have an email. All my kids have email addresses in school. It's just how you got to sign on to Google and you have to do stuff now. Everybody has an email address. It's not going anywhere. OK, so to send people to your platforms to nurture them. So maybe email is not the platform that you're using to nurture. It's the connector, right? It's just facilitating. Hey, okay, here. Thank you for opting in here. Join the Facebook group. Hey, go here and do this. Hey, join us here. Right. And then what we're used to is nurture and sell on its own. Right. Email is still good for that. Right. But we have to understand now that we're also using email to get people off platforms to make the buy and sending people to platforms to make the buy. And I want to say this because I feel like I'm seeing a lot of people, they're doing it. They're not putting words to it. And anytime that you're doing something and you're not aware that you're doing it, you run the risk of stop doing something that's actually working because you weren't familiar or you weren't present to exactly what you were doing that was working. So for some of you, you're already doing this. I'm just putting words to it. A lot of you, you're not, because you don't understand how email works and can be used. So the previous two are what has emerged in the last 5 to 7 years in digital marketing, getting people off platforms and sending people to platforms. Because remember, engagement, it just wasn't as wide open as it is now online. Right. So why did I say all of this? It felt like this was a lot of foundation laying, some strong education on how to approach email and understand its role. Why do I say all this? And it's because if you approach email as it has been promoted and used in the past, you're going to miss out on a huge opportunity. Right. And that opportunity is you have to acknowledge that you're going to have multiple channels in your marketing. Email cannot be the only channel. Even for people who are relying on email heavily, there's got to be other channels of communication because people are not opening emails like they used to. I'm going to talk about this in the next podcast episode. Don't worry, I won't leave you hanging. We'll talk about expected performance of email marketing. But just know right now, until that evolution comes around where email becomes like the primary again, and we're not even talking about per audience, because every industry has different trends, right? So you're going to have to use multiple channels if you want your marketing to be effective. And you can't focus solely on email without taking into account everything mentioned in this podcast. The fact that it's a very strong reinforcer, right? The fact that it is here to aid you in making sure that the process that people are going through is completed, right? They need to finish what they started. Okay. Email is here to help you do that. And this is in addition to the traditional means and the new ways that I highlighted on this podcast. Okay. So the next episode you'll hear from me is talking about the the expected performance of email marketing. But who do you know that needs to hear this new approach to email? A lot of times people are doing the right thing. And because they have the wrong expectation, they don't realize just how right what they're doing is. I can't count the amount of people who have come to me and say, hey, what's wrong with my email? People are not getting it. They're not reading my emails. And then I look at their sales and their sales are amazing. And I'm like, what's the problem? Well, what's going on? And you look at their landing page conversion, sales page conversions, are amazing. But for some reason, they're locked in that everybody has to open my email. Let me tell you all this. If you never open an email of mine, but I deliver value and you give me money for that value without email, I'm fine. You don't have to read an email from me, but you can. And I guess that's the best way. That's the best way to close it out, right? You don't have to read an email from any business, but every business should make sure that you can read that email, right? So everybody won't read it, but everybody can that receives it. Okay. So you're not looking at email as they got to read it. I got to send this. I got to send this. And maybe it was just me. I was caught up in that mode. Like, okay, we got to, opt in. We've got to write this email sequence. And I was relying on the email sequence to close, just totally bypassing the power of the page that they're on. Why not tighten up my messaging and my copy so they don't have to go to their email? What if I could just deliver that entire experience, shorten the learning curve, the sales cycle, all within web pages? Right? So who would that be fruitful for? For my funnel builders out there, how many times have you tried to explain this to that business owner, that entrepreneur? Send this to them. Aspiring funnel builders, hey, the keys of the kingdom are being handed to you. You abide by this tutelage, you are going to be the cream of the crop. I'm telling you. Okay. So if you found value in today's episode, please share it. Please share it with that person that I mentioned, and make sure that you're subscribed and leave a 5-star rating and review. It's greatly appreciated. All episodes and show notes will be available at automationbridge.com/podcast. And if you're looking to learn more about systematizing your business, I'd like to invite you to register for my most recent masterclass that covers the fundamental systems every business needs in order to scale efficiently. Okay. That's found at automationbridge.com/systems. That's systems with an S. So until next time, automate responsibly, my friends.